everyone. It is a great pleasure of mine to be joined here today by Dr. Farrel Hellig and Azeem Latib, course directors of AfricaPCR. This year, we are talking about the edition that is taking place next year in March 2023. And I would like to start with Dr. Farrel, asking him what is so special about AfricaPCR?
Well, thank you, Dejan. I think what's special is that we're coming back. We've had a long hiatus during the COVID pandemic, and we've learned a lot of lessons. In the meantime, we've used the opportunity to see what other PCR courses have done during the pandemic, and we've realized that we need to change the course in order to reach the broader community, because this is a continental meeting and we have to reach a lot of people. There's a lot of restriction in Africa to travel. Accessibility to South Africa is not so simple for many parts of the continent. And so we need to reach them with a course that's a blend of online learning and on-site learning.
This is what we have learned during the pandemic, and most of the PCR courses have looked like that. But there's a question that I would like you, Azeem, to answer, and that is, how is AfricaPCR different in terms of adapting this unique style of education that we have at PCR to a continent-wide audience?
Well, I think you just said it there, Dejan. There are very few meetings I've been to that actually cater to an entire continent, but Africa is a continent that's very different to others. There's so many different countries, there's so much diversity, the level of care is different in different countries, the access to technologies, to even technologies that the three of us take for granted, balloons, wires, and stents, okay, are very different between the different countries. And so Farrel, the other course directors, we've all spent a lot of time in how can we create a message and how can we educate all these different diversities? How do you get the country and the center where maybe there's one cath lab in the whole country to still be engaged and give them a message that they can use to help their patients? That's the challenge of trying to teach in Africa. And so what we've tried to do is figure out what kind of session will appeal to the patient, rather, and the patient's journey from getting a diagnosis to actually being treatment. And I think Farrel's come up with some new, unique ideas on how to reach really all these different countries with different knowledge, but also not just the interventional cardiologists, right? Because in Africa, we've also got to educate the general practitioner to realize when he has that patient, to send that patient for further care.
That really is unique, and I would like to continue with you, Farrel. So if I understood it correctly, what you're trying to do is to adapt the PCR style of education to the needs of different African countries. Now, in order to do that, you need to come up with new formats as well. And you're going to involve also other cardiologists, not only interventional cardiologists, but not only that, you plan to involve general practitioners as well. How is that going to work?
And beyond that, even allied practitioners and nurse practitioners. So we want to integrate them actually into the main program. What we've done is we've asked our group of co-directors, which represent the whole swathe of the continent from north, south, east, west, and central, who represent most of the countries who are engaged in these activities, to submit a needs analysis. And we've taken a careful look at this needs analysis and decided, based on this needs analysis, what we should do. And what we've realized is we've been building a course, and I really believe we've built an excellent courses in the past, but that's catered to a small group of people, and the people who really need to access this have not been reached. And another thing, and I'll explain more about that in a minute, but what we've realized is that many places in Africa, the first patient contact can be very remote from a cardiac-enabled hospital, and they may make contact with a hospital that doesn't even have a doctor. Sometimes there'll be general practitioners, sometimes there'll be specialist physicians, but there may not be a cardiologist for hundreds or even thousands of kilometers. So the patient has to be managed by those people initially. So what we've realized is that there's a how should I treat model of education that can be divided into two stages. The first stage is the first patient contact without any cardiology services, and what are the challenges of diagnosis, initial management, logistics, and need for transfer, and that also depends on the degree of urgency of the case. And then how is that managed in different environments, and we're going to compare that between the regions. And then finally, when they get to the cardiac-enabled hospital with a cath lab and with cardiologists, what are the challenges there that are specific to Africa? So I think we've called this a comprehensive how should I treat model, and it deals with the patient's entire journey from first presentation to final therapy.
This is very interesting, and I think it's very much in line with the buy and for principle that we abide to by creating PCR-style educational formats, because you did go to the doctors who first see the patient and you ask them, what is it that you need to know in order to treat those patients, and what is it that you need to know to further manage the patient down the road? And I think that is to me, it looks to be very promising and very interesting. A question for you, Azeem. What is it in terms of the formats this year that we can expect? Is it going to be just a course in Johannesburg, or is it going to be wider than that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the thing we've learned for AfricaPCR to grow and to touch people, we have to involve Africa. Right, it can't be a course only in Southern Africa or in Northern Africa. There's so many countries, and we need to get them involved. So we've been very careful about trying to get representatives from each country to come and to be involved in the meeting, to help us design sessions that will have a focus on their countries as well. To have a very diverse faculty, but also we have to take into account some of the challenges that happen in Africa. Not everybody can travel, not just because of COVID, for political reasons as well. And how do we continue to provide education to those countries? So, one of the things that struck me when we did this was, Farrel told me about the hubs we'll be doing. So we're going to have 2 hubs. Okay, I think one in Sudan, one in Egypt, correct, Farrel? And we spoke to one of the hubs yesterday, and we spoke to Dr. Awad, who's running the hub, right? And he said something that really touched me. So I asked him, how many people are going to be in your hub? And I was expecting him to say 20. He goes, no, probably 200. And I go, but the 200 people who are going to come to this? He goes, Azeem, people in Africa are hungry for knowledge. They want to learn, and so AfricaPCR is so important to be able to feed our colleagues out there and to educate them and to help them provide the best care they can with the resources they have, because that's the challenge, right? We can't tell a doctor in Sudan, who's in the community, that no, he should use rotablator for every calcified lesion, because maybe there's only one center in the entire country that has rotablator, not in the city, in the entire country. That's the challenge.
That's a big challenge also in terms of educational contents. Oh. Now, to explain to our audience the principle of the hub, I think Azeem already alluded to it, but can you tell us more about that? What is it that you expect from the 2 hubs that are going to be taking place next year for AfricaPCR?
So let me say that the course is divided into 2 tracks. We've got one track which is an essential track. We call it essential because it deals with the essentials of patient management. And then we have a second track called the applied track, which is more for the type of meeting content you'd see at any meeting such as EuroPCR or London Valves, where you see state-of-the-art therapy. The essentials track will be held in a studio that's got an on-site audience component, but also will be transmitted online to the entire world, but with a focus of the needs of Africa. And there will be 2 hubs on 2 different days, and those hubs will be engaged directly with the studio and be an integral part of the meeting. In addition, we are encouraging the hubs to develop their own content in between to focus on their local needs, and so the hubs will have its own program and be interacting with the main program in the studio. And then we're also encouraging the development of pods throughout the continent where people can form small groups and meet within their own environment, such as a hospital or a small meeting room, anywhere in Africa, where they can tune into that track and have their own local discussion as well.
That's great. That's great. So I think to sum up, we all await a great Africa PCR next March in Johannesburg and Africa-wide, on-site and online. And I would like to ask both of you for your final personal messages to our audience.
So I'll go first. I think, my message is to the colleagues who are in Africa, whether you doctors, nurses, allied professionals. This is a meeting we've worked really hard to cater to you and to help you gather the knowledge to get better at what you do, which is taking care of patients. I think the course will really allow a lot of interaction, allow the audience to participate, and allow all of Africa to participate in this meeting. And so I'm really looking forward to being there in person and being back in South Africa. And I hope to see you all there.
I think that the course is going to really meet your requirements in Africa. And I think we've made every effort to deliver content that's going to be relevant to you. And I think that whatever level you're at, if you're just starting cardiology, if you've got a hospital that's just opened a new cath lab, or you do thousands of procedures a year, we're going to cater to all of that, from case-based sessions, from learning sessions to how should I treat sessions, and live cases with sophisticated state-of-the-art procedures. So it caters to the whole continent, and we can't wait to welcome you, be it on-site or online, to our meeting in 2023.
Thank you very much. We invite you all next March, Johannesburg, on-site and online Africa PCR. See you.